We got the three tabs again. Okay, so it's red, which is good. So what I wanted to show was this. This is an Excel template that I will give you guys, and what you can do here is, I mean, this is just the height to adjust the height of the bar. So if you probably make it 80, it'll just go down, or if you made it -50, it'll just go at the bottom. So this is the one that I'm controlling here. So I'll leave that at 100. So you can come in here and you can map a range in this Excel spreadsheet, and you can start with the lowest price that you want and the highest price that the seller wants. Now, in between all of that, what is going on is that there is a seller's minimum acceptable offer that they reluctantly accept. That's also there. So now they are here, but they also have a minimum acceptable offer at the back. And with the same goes for you as a buyer as well, where you have, you know, if you got it for 800, fantastic, that'll be great, but you would be, you know, if you could still make about 14% development margin at 950,000. So you won't let the deal go. You'll just say, look, you know, this is, I can take that deal at 950,000 as well. At 800, it would have been fantastic, extra 150,000 in your pocket. But if you can't, and you have to do the project or whatever, and you'll say, look, it still shows about 14% development margin, yeah, I'll take it, you know, but you reluctantly took it. So that's what you've got to remember. So that's what the target point and the minimum acceptable offer is all about. Now, with the buyer's target point that is happy to pay. So let's say at 950 you make 14%, for example, but at 900 you make 16% development margin. So this is, you're happy to pay 900. If you got it for 800, fantastic, right? And you'll sell something at 950,000. Well, you'll buy something at 950,000 reluctantly, like, you know, I've got to make the project work somehow. It just works, so I'll take it. But you're also happy to pay about 900,000 in there. And the reason I want you to do this exercise anytime you want to go and start negotiating is so that you in your head know what are your minimum acceptable offers and what are your target points, and you have incomplete information. You wouldn't know where the buyer's at, where the seller is at. And for that, you'll have to probe and you'll have to ask questions to the agent. You'll have to try and uncover as much information as possible, and figure out where they are sitting at. And we'll go through some strategies later, how to figure that out. So now seller also has a target point or a price that he's happy to accept. Now, if he got $1,050,000, he would be over the moon, but even $1 million, you know, is not bad for him. So it's like a happy to accept kind of medium. Now, what you got to remember, I will go back to this again. So target point again, point at which each party wants to get out of negotiation. That means negotiation's over. I'll just accept this offer. I'm happy to take it. Let's get out. The negotiations are finished. Minimum acceptable offer again. It's the worst deal each party would reluctantly accept. And the buyer's MAO. Let's look at this together. Let's zoom out a little bit. Now the buyer's MAO, where is it? Buyer's MAO right here. Buyer's MAO is greater than his target point. So where is the buyer's target point? This is the buyer's target point. Because he wants to pay as little as possible. Did I make a mistake here? No, then, sorry, this is then the seller's target point. I don't know, I think I've made a mistake here, but I'll, what am I doing? Okay, I'll get back to this, but I want to show that where your area of agreement is actually going to be. So you're basically not going to pay the price here, and he's not going to accept your offer on these two ends. So what ends up happening is that the area of agreement, which is where you could strike a deal, happens somewhere here in the middle. And that middle point is actually the seller's minimum acceptable offer, or the one that he or she reluctantly accepts, and the buyers reluctantly pay. So whatever that worst case point is for both parties, everything that's in the middle, that is where the area of agreement is going to happen. So if you look at these things, see these things, but the first time I read this, I thought that somebody had too much time on their hand and they just come up with a theory. But when you actually start mapping them in the Excel spreadsheet, which is this, you will see that it actually makes sense, because you can call up the agent and the agent say, look, we are not accepting offers below 800,000. So that for the seller, that's the worst case scenario. And you know that the lowest point for the seller is X amount, because the agent just told you that they won't accept offer below 800,000, for example. So that's the part that you need to understand with this. If you do this exercise and you adjust and see where they are at, and it's all a guessing game. Like, you got to keep guessing from the information that's available to you, and you keep asking questions to uncover more information so that you know where you are. And if you think that your feasibility doesn't stack up in that area of agreement, then you just walk away. There's no point wasting time there. You do what you can, and you walk away. But if you sit there and do this exercise before you see somebody, and before you actually get to this, there's a reason all of these, the entire course is in a sequence. So you can't get here until you've actually done your numbers properly, until you've done your due diligence, until you uncovered a lot of stuff about the land before you actually start negotiating it. So you should have your feasibility right here and see what is your minimum point, or you've got a target development margin over there. So if you say, look, if I'm risking that much money, or I've got to borrow X amount of money, I've got to make 15% development margin. So you know that this is the minimum that you've got to make. And for that, what is the maximum that you should pay for the land? So now you've got a price that you can set, that this is the for me, this is the maximum price that I've got to accept. So if you point those things out, that this is, for me, this is where I'm. You don't have to follow this Excel spreadsheet. I just created it so we could, but you can do that on a piece of paper as well, and see, I don't want to pay more than this, but I'll be happy to pay that much. And the buyer's asking this much, won't accept an offer below that. So you've got that. So you pinpoint an area between that where you think that your offer is going to be accepted. Now, anytime these kind of negotiations are going, the fourth rule, or the fourth thing is important, is momentum. The moment you start negotiating with the vendor or anything, don't let your conversation, or don't let your negotiation stall at all. Now, this might not happen with the vendor. It may happen with your investors. So 4 people are planning to do a project together, and you guys miss the next meeting on Sunday. and then somebody says, oh, I'll see you next Sunday, and then 2 people rock up and 2 don't, and then it all just fizzles out. So excuse me. So always remember that Newton's first law of motion, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion. So you got to gain that momentum. So the moment you start talking to them and they give you a hint, you got to go there the next day. Like these landowners, 7 of them that we are talking to, we are on them every day. Like we're not letting, unless they sign a piece of paper that says the deal's done. We are trying to get to them either directly or via an agent, or have talk, or or start lining up our meetings with them, all those things. So keeping a negotiation going, keeping a negotiation moving forward towards a resolution is much easier than getting it going again after it slows down or stops. So 4 of you, if you don't see each other for the next 2 or 3 Sundays, this is going to fizzle out and die, because everyone gets busy with their own life. Everyone is doing whatever they're doing, and then suddenly something that you wanted to come together and do has been just put on the back burner, and then everyone's gone. So it takes time to get people back in that grooves and say, look, let's keep going. So don't ever let that momentum die out anytime you start negotiating. Preparation. Now, each one of them is like a really detailed one. So this is all about the power of information, and that's what, if you've done your due diligence properly, if you've done your numbers, everything, you've uncovered a lot of information about it. So if you've got a site, Google it. There's a website called Property Price History. When was the last time it was sold for? Your site could have details about it. Just Googling the address and going up to page 2 and 3, you'll be amazed what you can find there. You might find the initial plans, or you might find that they went to WeCat, or you might find that they applied for 10 units first and then got knocked back and then applied for 8. All this information is available just by Googling the address. So make sure you gather all that information, because every little piece of information you will use to negotiate something later on. So market research, everything that we discussed earlier, the spatial analysis, how long have these people lived on that site? What are we trying to determine? We're trying to determine their emotional attachment to the place. If you know that they're emotionally attached to it, you might structure an offer that's a win for them, and it's a win for you. So you find out when was the site listed first, how long has it already been on the market, how is the suburb doing, are there supply, demand, what's going on there. So all this information is required for you to do any kind of negotiation. So what is the maximum price you should pay for the site? So you can do a desktop valuation, and you have a feasibility, you can determine the residual value of the land. So you figured that much out. The other thing that you got to figure out is that what are the circumstances that the vendor is in? Why are they selling it? What is their immediate need? Could be financial difficulty, retiring, downsizing. Are there any number of parties involved with them? Find out who the decision maker is. Very important, because otherwise you'll just keep you'll actually just keep getting stalled by all these other members of the family who can't take the decision, but they are there to waste your time. And very politely or whatever, you just need to get them to the table, and I'll give you exact things to say as well. Where is the vendor going to move out to after the sale? So if you know they're moving out, where are they moving out to? There could be an opportunity for you to connect with them, or have and be able to build rapport with them. So mortgage on the land, whether or not there is mortgage on the land, this is anytime you pick up a site and you are thinking of buying it, the agent will send you your section 32 or your disclosure statement. The disclosure statement will disclose that it does have a mortgage on it. So you can find out these details. If they've got a mortgage on it, they'll be less likely to do a JV with you because they have a mortgage on it. But they could have a mortgage on it which is very small. It could be maybe 10%, 20% left, and you've got all this equity sitting in the land, and you still be able to strike some sort of a deal with them. Finding all the issues with the site. Are there any covenants? There are easements. Is there a sewer running through the site? What are the zoning, height restrictions? If they went and got a DA, was it an incorrect permit? Or if they've already applied for a permit and it's in council, or they haven't had a decision on it as yet. So all these site issues, you must have identified them at the very beginning before you even start negotiating it with them. So sloping side, sky rail, overland flow, very common in Brisbane. Even if the area is not in the flood zone, there is overland flow. And when it's overland flow, that land is, you got to put a slab on it and do all the other all sorts of engineering to be able to use that land. And in some cases, you can't really do anything with it, or it costs too much. So those are the things that you got to know. Is there too much rock where the soil is? That's going to cost you more because you got to build on rock, or especially if you want to dig a basement there, it's going to be a problem. Adverse possession. Does anybody know what adverse possession is? Adverse possession is basically a strip of land that's right next to your land, but it's not yours. And there's an indication of that in your title somewhere. Now, if for 15 years nobody claims it, there's a process that you can follow and you can claim it and add it to your land. But that land just belongs to council. But it's like a strip of land that's on your title, but it's not yours, and no one's actually claimed it for 15 years. Just follow the process, and you can do that. Now, I came across a site which had this issue with this strip of land right next to the site that we wanted to develop, and it was good. Everything was fine. It stacked up. We walked away from it because it had that strip of land, and for us to be able to do any kind of development, that land is not mine. And what that strip was it was a crossover and a footpath, and then this strip of land, and then the block. So you can't build on it, or you can't put two new crossovers on it because you don't own that land. Somebody else does. So for you to be able to do that development, you first have to go through the entire process and add that to your block of land. That is, if nobody objects. And if it's been 15 years, no one will object in 99% of the cases, but you never know these things. So, and that process could take 6 months, 8 months, and we can't even go into the council to get the DA. So you just walk away from something like this. Is the site contaminated? All of these things will be used as leverage for negotiating with the vendor. What are the permit conditions? If the site already has a permit and there's a DA on it, you got to look for adverse permit condition that costs money. The permit conditions could dictate that you've lost a unit. Now your plans might still have plans with 10 units, but the planning permit condition could say take off 1 unit and we issued you a permit. So that means you've already lost it. I know somebody who was trying to sell their block of land, saying that it's got 4 units on it, right? And they were trying to push it as 4 3-bedroom units on it, and hence the price of the land was X. And the moment we looked at it, I said, look, Sam, he's asking 300,000 for each unit. He wanted 1.2 and it had a permit for 4 units, but 2 of them were 2-bedders and 2 of them were 3-bedders. What he was trying to do was push 3 3-bedders and 1 2-bedder with it for that price. And we walked away from it. And then somebody else signed the contract, and the contract then fell over as soon as they found out. So, so those are the things that you got to be careful of. The council might ask you to increase the setback on the first floor. And that could, based on your design, that could mean loss of 1 bedroom. So suddenly that what you were pushing for, or you were doing your numbers on with 3-bedroom townhouse or a 3-bedroom apartment, is now 2-bedder. If it's 2-bedder, that means you're going to get less for it. So all these things will start impacting the price. So council might have put in their condition that you have to upgrade the sewer. Extra cost $35,000 just to upgrade a little piece of sewer that's actually is going through the back of your property. and it's only what 15 or 16 meters wide. So that portion, if I have to upgrade it, it's 35 grand straight off the bat. So those are the things that you can uncover and then use to your advantage. Relocate bus stand. This is, I personally come across this. The project I did in Brisbane had a bus stand right in front of it, which cost us 10 grand to actually relocate further up. So those are the things that, but since I was in the project from the beginning, it wasn't like I was buying that, but these issues come up. There could be planning issues, 35% garden rule, changes in zoning, and it shouldn't be here. So you got to do your due diligence prior. So I think I've accidentally pasted this section somewhere else. Okay. So there could be planning issues related to it or changes in zoning. Figure out what the rate per square meter is in that area for land and for new units. So you should know both. When you buy the land, what other houses, other blocks, 600 square meters with a single house on them, what have they sold for? So you get a dollar per square meter rate for the land itself with just a single house. And then you find out the dollar per square meter rate when you built an apartment or a unit, just like I explained when we were doing feasibility to figure out what you can sell them for. Comparable sales, and then buyer's market versus vendor's market or supplier market. It's all related with supply and demand. So vendor's market basically means low inventory and there are many hot buyers. So this is what we were in. Now it has actually now switched vendor's market is basically, just confuses me. I'll just call it seller's market. Whoa. Seller's market, that means low inventory and there are many buyers. This is where Melbourne was or Sydney was a few months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. But now the market has changed to a buyer market. And that is why I say that this is the right time for all of you to go and negotiate a deal, because right now there are not a lot of people in the market, and the buyers are accepting offers and longer settlements. So it can't be a better time, so long as you research the area properly. There can't be a better time to do a development, because most people got scared with APRA, got scared with everything. But Melbourne had 79.8% auction clearance rate last weekend, and this is in the middle of school holidays. So in the seller's market, the buyer has less leverage, must be willing to compromise. That means that you end up paying a little bit more for the land. There are fewer options for purchasing, and the buyer is always an underdog in negotiations. And the vendor, on the other hand, has more leverage and can be aggressive with demand. So it's for them, it's basically take it or leave it kind of situation, where I'm going to sell my block for 1.2. You want it for $1,050,000. Bad luck. Somebody else will buy it. So yeah, so many options for selling, and the vendor would have an upper hand in negotiations in that scenario. But when it comes to buyer scenario, this is where most of the market is at the moment. You believe it or you don't believe it, but this is where we are in a buyer's market right now, which basically means high inventory, few buyers. And in that scenario, the buyer would have more leverage. They can be aggressive with demands. There are many options for purchasing, has upper hand in negotiation, and the vendor is all the opposite of what the buyer is at the moment. So always remember that. Okay, so let's say we've uncovered all this information. The next step is building rapport. So it doesn't matter if you can't see the vendor, and in most cases you won't. You still got to build a rapport even with the agent. So always build rapport with the agent, because they are the ones who will find those off-market sites for you if you show them that you are serious. So how much does the two-party trust and like each other? It just you got to. Rapport is all about that. It's all about that, building that trust and like. They got to know, trust, and like you. And if they don't, they won't get you the deal. So they'll get it for somebody else. So if someone likes you, they will want you to succeed. So if the agent likes you, the agent would back so that you get the project instead of your competition. And believe me, there some agents will just blurt everything out, and I love to buy from such agents. Now, always remember, business is personal. Never use the phrase "it's only business, it's not personal." If you lowball somebody or you give them an offer, never use that phrase. Try and do as much rapport building face to face. People are more receptive to others who are, and yeah, always show confidence. If anything, not show overconfidence, but I think the reason I was able to do that many projects or the no money down deal or everything was because I was very confident of what I was doing, and I just spoke with a lot of confidence. I just knew stuff. I spent the time to learn and everything, and a lot of investors saw that confidence and then wanted to get into the project with me. So and I was able to talk my way through with all of this. And at the time, it was like my second development. My second development was a no money down deal in 2014. So people are more receptive to others who are confident. Simply acting confident, even if you don't feel confident, will make you a much better negotiator. So you walk in with an aura about yourself, and you'll be able to negotiate a better deal. And I can actually pinpoint a lot of agents, the ones that are snakes, the ones that are good agents, and the ones that have no clue whatsoever. And they come to a developer with the site, the developer just walks all over them. And not in a condescending way, but the developer actually knows how to negotiate and talk. And most agents I've seen, they don't understand what is going on. Like, they don't understand the mechanics, they don't understand the legalities, they don't understand how to structure deals. So because you have better information from them, you understand the market better, you understand the mechanics of it much better than they do, you'll be able to get a better deal through them. So always remember that. Use their name in conversation. Everybody likes to hear their name. Always use their name in the conversation. It just tells them that you're their friend. Always address them by their name. Now, this is a psychological thing that people do. I've never done this because I'm just worried about what I'm talking about. I'm not doing that. I put it there because no matter whether you read a sales book, whether you go through a NLP course, or even Tony Robbins, you can go and you can go to YouTube and search for Tony Robbins mirroring technique, and Tony Robbins also teaching the same technique. And it's all about building rapport. It's not about manipulating them. But what it is that people are more receptive to others. Oh, sorry, the wrong section. So what you need to do is mirror what they are doing. You got to match their tone. Do they talk slowly? Do they talk rapidly? Do they talk loudly? Don't start shouting if they are loud, but keep your voice at a higher pitch or a little bit louder than normal tone, because otherwise they'll walk all over you. So people like people that are like themselves. So that's what we are trying to do here. And without actually saying or even trying to do something, you'll find that these people will start developing a liking for you. So you notice things like, how about when they are listening, or do they tend to blink a lot? Do they gesture with their hands while talking? Are they leaning in or out or to the side? Do they make physical contact during interaction? Do they make a similar level of contact? Try to use this other party's language when negotiating. So say, for example, when you're having a financing discussion, if you're talking in terms of interest rate and they are talking in terms of monthly payment, you should start talking in terms of monthly payments as well. So use the same language that they use. So if they call something with a certain name or whatever, or a certain term that they use to address something, you use the same term rather than trying to show off that you know more about this. And I remember when I was I just doing the course, there was another guy who was doing the course with me, and he had memorized everything as well, but I don't think he's been able to do a development as yet. But he memorized everything, and he was trying to show that he knows a lot, and he kept throwing all these terms at me, and I didn't know all those terms at the time. So I just think that wasn't very nice of him. I don't want to use anything else. This session is being recorded. So you talk about them, you compliment them if they've got paintings in their room. You talk about it. If they've got a collection of something, you talk about it. If they've got pets, you talk about it. And you try and find similarities between them, because people like people who are like them. And what you're trying to do is develop a relationship with them. And this is happening with the agent as well. It's very seldom that you'll actually get in front of the vendor, and it will happen, but you're doing the same thing with the agent. You're doing the same thing with somebody who you want to invest, where you want them to invest in your project with you, and you got to do the same thing. So don't think that it is only with the vendor, and you won't be able to see them half the time. So you do that the same thing with your investors as well, because you got to have a rapport with your investors as well. And all you do is you just keep saying, interesting, tell me more about that. And that's it. There's one line, and they'll just keep talking. And towards the end, they'll say, oh, I love this guy. And you haven't said a word. All you said was, interesting, tell me more about that. So remember that. Now, I don't remember all of these things all the time, but every time I go through and I'm taking a class or I'm creating a video, it actually refreshes what I already know. And then for a few days, I pick out a few things and I start using every day. So leave your ego at home. Still prove your self-confidence without having to control every aspect. So although you leave your ego at home, you still need to prove your self-confidence, because nobody likes to do business with anybody, with someone who's not confident about it. So if you're not confident about your numbers, or if your financial feasibility or the end value, the other party will see it through. And this, Casey, I hope that you're listening. The same thing will apply, because you want to negotiate a deal with your dad. And if your dad sees that you are not confident in what you are doing, he won't give you that deal. So this is something that's happening at your home, and you got to show your dad you know your stuff. Numbers, whatever you've done, show it to him, explain him, create a timeline for him. By the way, that Excel template that you guys are going to get, you can actually create a timeline with that as well. I don't want to show that here, but all you do is right click on this thing and click format axis, and you can put in your maximum. So you could put in like a year somewhere over there, change their values here. So you can use it as a timeline and put in what's going to happen when, or you use a Gantt chart. So I use a Gantt chart. I don't use Excel for these things, but there's a free Gantt chart site where you can use it. So the reason I'm saying this is because, Casey, if you go to your dad to negotiate a deal because your dad just wants to get rid of the site and you want to develop it, you have to prove him that you are confident about what you are doing. He won't budge otherwise. But if he sees that you have what it takes, even if you haven't got what it takes, but you show him that you've got it, that's all that matters. And that's all you need to do. Make sure that you show him that you know your stuff. But generally, go and know your stuff. So egocentrism means that we tend to interpret the same information in ways that support positive views of ourselves. So in negotiation, this translates into us interpreting the other party's demand as self-serving and an attempt to cheat us out of something. So remember that. It could be, for whatever reason, if they act in a certain way, that doesn't mean that they are that way. So the other party is interpreting our demands in the same egocentric way. So what it actually means is, when I was going through this and putting this class together, I remember this quote from Stephen Covey that said that we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. And always remember the other party is also judging you by your actions, because they don't know what your intentions are. And you're judging yourself because I'm not going to do that, or I'm an honest person, I'm fair income. So you're judging yourself with your intention, but the other party hasn't seen it through as yet. And that's where that repo and all of these things come in picture, because you got to show them what your intentions are with your actions. So really powerful line. I'm going to put a red flag here. So always remember this. So don't be afraid to admit when you don't know something. So again, I'm pointing out at Casey because he's trying to negotiate this deal with his dad. I really would love to help you get this deal through. So don't be afraid to admit when you don't know something, when you made a mistake, or you use self-deprecating humor when you catch yourself trying to overpower the other party. So it doesn't matter, no problems. It's an occasional act of vulnerability will typically help you in negotiation, not hurt you. So every now and then you got to show that you're human. So that's fine. You can show them you're human every now and then. Again, now, when you are negotiating via an agent specifically, again, you got to have a rapport with the agent. Uncover information related to the vendor. Make sure that the agent communicates your concession as a concession. Now, what concessions are, we'll discuss in a second. But any concession that you're given, so let's say you wanted a price or something, but the agent said, look, I want a 10% deposit. Can you do it? So that's a concession that you just made. Usually I wouldn't do 10% deposit. I try and do 5% deposit. So, but if I agree to 10, that'll be a concession that I've done. But you got to make sure that the agent goes out and conveys that to the vendor. If they don't know that you made a concession, you have no leverage. You have no way to actually go back and negotiate something, because as far as they're concerned, you haven't done anything. So anytime you do make concession, make sure you convey it. Also, convey what you have in common. It doesn't matter. Even if it's the agent, talk to him about his football club. If the agent tells you that the vendor is Tiger fan, you better be a Tiger fan too. So find out if you can be a Tiger fan. Although I just can't do this. This is so American. But I just can't do that. If I'm not a Tiger fan, I'm not a Tiger fan. I would just not talk about it, that's all. But I'll find something else that I am generally a fan of and find that as a common ground. So same hobby, same sport, same profession. Try and establish common ground with the agent. You could be a person who's a family man, and you'll find that the agent's a family man, and the agent says, look, the vendor's a family guy, he wants to look after his kids, and bingo. And then you tell him a story about you being a family guy, and then that story will travel. So when you're dealing with the agent, you got to ask him, why are they selling? Now, we always ask them this, and you don't get a lot of information. However, you'll find that they are timid agents, and they will give you all this information. But if you come across an agent who's a good negotiator, they won't give you much information by asking just, why are they selling? Oh, he's got a better side, he just wants to, and on the inside, that for all you know is that he's got a shit permit, and he can't make it work, or the construction costs are too much. It happens all the time, especially when the sites come on the market with plans and permit. So they'll just talk about that, oh, it's a perfectly good project. You went and got a permit for it. Why are you getting rid of it? If it had money, you went through the council process and everything. Why are you selling it? Oh, I'm consolidating my money to buy a bigger project. This is all this story is, it's a lot of bull. It's there's no merit to all this story. So this is the weakest question that you can ask. However, do ask them, because the agents who are weak themselves, they will give you all that information. They'll tell you the truth, what's going on. I'm negotiating with an agent who's timid, and I asked him what's going on, and then he told me that this guy is winding up his entire estate. His kids don't want to join him. He's been asking his kids to join him in this business, and the kids don't want a bar of it. And he's now selling all of this and going back overseas. His kids are going to live here, but he's just going to give them some cash. Like this guy just wouldn't stop. And I didn't even want that much information. All I did was, why is he selling? And then he gave me all this information. Now I understand that, okay, he's going next year. So he's pressed on time. So he will never give me like a 12-month settlement, but he might give me something else. And I've also figured out that if I nibble at this guy, I'll be able to save some money. So, and nibbling is a strategy then we'll discuss a little bit further. Like we'll discuss today a little bit later. So why is your client choosing to sell at this time? Now these are certain questions that you got to ask, and you can write them down, or you'll get a copy of all these mind maps and PDFs that you can use. So you should memorize all of them. Why is your client choosing to sell at this time? So at this time will get you more information. So choosing to sell, you stop here and you get very little information. You add these last 3 words to your sentence, at this time, and you'll get more information. Have you received any other offers on the property? So most people will tell you yes, no. Sometimes agents will always fake this thing. Even if they haven't got an offer, they'll say, look, I'm talking to somebody else. Yeah, right. Agents are very smart at this. And I'm not talking about when you are trying to buy something. I'm also talking about when you are trying to sell your units. And an agent will walk in, and you would be listed with another agent, and he'll walk in and say, oh, these units, I've got 2 buyers looking for certain units. And all they're trying to do is they're trying you to get rid of the agent that you've got there, fire him, and employ this other guy. Every agent who comes to a developer's site and to pick up stock that they can sell, and if they haven't got it or somebody else has it, will always have a buyer for your units. Will always. It's like he's hiding and holding him off from coming to the site and buying it off me, but he's got one for us. So that's a little carrot. Always remember, they'll say that to you every time. So another question you can ask is, my investors would love to make an offer. Unfortunately, for it to work for them, the offer would likely be a bit below the list price. Is that something your client would still consider? So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to figure out the minimum acceptable offer. This question is designed to uncover what the minimum acceptable offer is going to be. What else should our investors know about the vendor or the property? Now here, I switched this because you do not want to come in that as if you're the one investigating everything. You're the employee you work for all these big investors. Who are these? I don't know. But there are these investors in the background. Nobody knows who they are, and nobody cares. But you use that word to get more information. You may have some investors. I always have investors, even if no investors got any more money left, because all their money is already in some projects. But I always have investors when I'm talking to agents. So yeah. So what sort of commission would you charge if we were to sell our units via you? So what are you trying to uncover? You're trying to figure out how much is this guy charging the vendor to sell their property. So you can do some math and say, look, that's why he's pushing for 850,000, because he's got to pay 2% to this guy from that 850. So I already know that, okay, you got 850 and 2% goes to him, so it'll be about 20,000 something that will have to go to them. So that means he's already at, he can already accept 830,000. So I know that there's a point where the buyer can actually come down a little bit. So these are the things that you want to uncover when you start talking to the agent. Fire a lowball offer. I do that. I start very, very low, and I know it. I do that. I do come across to agents as a prick, but I'm just trying to get the best price for the project. My job is to get the best price for land, if I don't get the best price for land, I'm being a stupid developer. So it's not that I've got that I want to rob somebody of something, but this is 100% legit. You're allowed to negotiate, and that's what you do. You got to give that in writing always. Even if your lowball offer comes in, you give that in writing. As per the law, I don't think a lot of agents follow it at all. As per the law, if you present an offer to the agent, by law the agent's got to take it to the vendor. But I know that most people don't, especially the big project marketers. I don't want to name any big companies, but the big ones, and they will never take an offer there because they will not even entertain you. So yeah, so but by law, the law says that I've got an REIV certificate in real estate. The law says that if you get an offer, you got to present it. So don't worry about, when you make a lowball offer, don't worry about insulting the vendor, because it probably would never get to the vendor. But if you give that in writing on your letterhead and everything, it will look a lot more professional. So maybe that agent changes their mind and goes and presents. So every time a vendor receives a really low offer, his maximum price that he wants starts dropping down. So it's like anytime you hit them below the knees, they hunch a little bit, and they mentally start getting prepared for a lower offer. Now, some of them, not all of them are like that, but I've seen majority of them are like that. And what will happen is that the ones who are astute, who are doing developments, or who've been buying investment properties for a very long time, these guys won't budge. People who understand where the market is at, or the market is hot, the market is going up, those people won't budge. But a lot of people will. And I do this gang up thing as well. And the gang up thing is initially, well, I haven't done this recently in the last couple of years, but I have done this for the 3 townhouse project we did in 2015, where we were 3 partners, and we called the agent with 3 different names, and one lowball offer after another. We just sort of ganged up on him. But see, once you're in the market and you start operating in an area, everybody knows you. So then all these are cheap tricks, but they work sometimes, and sometimes you just make them work if they work. So you can do that. Talk to the agent, because see, you got to see if the agent on the other side is a prick as well. If I figure out that this agent is being a prick, I'm the nastiest prick to him. So, and we've actually had we had these 2 agents, again I won't name the company, in Mordialloc, and they were telling us a different story, telling the vendor a different story, even after we had given them an offer and everything. So they never, and we found out that they were playing these games with us. So we pulled out, and we sat back for 3 months, and then went and got the same sites again. So yeah, so you got to be careful, because these things do happen to you too. They will happen to you too, especially as you keep going. So yeah, the vendor's acceptable price range is likely to be smaller and anchored around the list price, even if it is optimistic. So you want to figure out what the vendor is expecting. The list price there, which is in the range of, let's say, 850 to 900, that's what they are expecting to get for their land. So that's another dead giveaway, where you can put them down on paper and figure out, he's asking this, and the other sites in the area sold for that. If you spend a few minutes on something like this, you'll figure out exactly how all of this comes together. You got to educate the agent, and you'll find a lot of agents, they only understand what they need to do. And I don't blame them, it's not their job to know all of that, but because they're in this industry, I would expect them to know all of that. But most of them don't. And what you need to do is educate the agent. See, this is the negotiation tactic that I really like, which is all based on facts and numbers and data. And I say my hands are tied. this is what I can do based on that's what my research says. So if the agent is not aware of something, you show them, the construction cost is almost $1,600 a square meter. Add the GST on it, and it's actually even more. If you look at the size, you'll be at least X amount. And you never show them your feasibility ever. You never show your feasibility to any agent ever. And because you don't want to show them what you're making. Your feasibility should never have your profit on it if you're going to share it with anybody. So never show what you're making, because otherwise they know how much more, how much extra that you can pay for the land. So that is the reason I never show the feasibility to the agent. But we know, we understand our numbers. We just we tell them that X amount, all the consultants going to be at this amount, and the GST and this and that, and where's my margin? There's no margin in it, so it's not worth the trouble. But in dollar value, we never talk about it. We talk about it in percentages, where I don't want to make 10% on something like this, which involves a considerable amount of borrowing. And continue using this phrase. It's called the fair objective criteria. Use the phrase, I just want to pay the price that's fair and where the market is at. You keep saying that where the market is at, because then you are referring back to the research that you've already done. You're paying where it should be. So those are these are some tactics that you can use when you are negotiating with the agent. You got to maximize your leverage. I've got to hurry up because otherwise I won't finish. I've got a few tabs to go through. You got to start with focusing on things both sides agree on. So give a sense of progress. Okay, it sounds like we both agree on the major points. It is not going to be subject to finance, and we will have access to the site for due diligence. So those are the 2 points that you agreed on already. Now the only thing that we need to do is come together on price. I know you cannot accept X dollars. What if I can offer you X and you give us a longer settlement? So you basically reiterated everything that you already agreed on. So if the other party sees that you've agreed on a few things, they feel that the discussion is going forward. So you go there, and the first thing that you talk about is subject to finance, and you say, no, I wouldn't go unconditional. It has to be subject to finance. They say, no, it has to be unconditional. That's it. End of discussion. The matter would not go forward, and you might lose a perfectly healthy project. So agree on what is easily agreeable first, whether it's major or a minor issue. So if the price is agreeable quickly and you think that you're happy to pay that and they are happy to get that, agree on that first. And if the minor things come up first, you agree on the minor things first. So you just don't get stuck on the price, that's it. So include in your covering letter, we have agreed on 1, 2, 3, 4, and you write them down. That way, if your covering letter goes to the vendor, they will read that you've already agreed on these things that they were asking. So that is you also making sure that what you've agreed on is already is being conveyed to the vendor. Or if you're talking directly to the vendor, then there's no problem. You still write all of those things down so they know that, okay, this is all we've already agreed. Now let's say you got an offer that was really, really good, and you said, he agreed on 800. What else I could get? Don't jump up. Don't start jumping up. Pause, and then accept it with a heavy heart, so to speak. So because what we want to basically do is not show them that they lost at something, or because it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, that they will keep thinking that, what did I miss? And you don't want that situation. If you've got a good deal, just keep your mouth shut and you take it, you pause, and then you accept it. So this pause will hopefully introduce enough friction into the transaction that they don't realize they offer too much. So those are the things that you got to be careful of. Now, how much do you want or need? You got to ask yourself this question: how much do you want or need that property? So anytime you start negotiating and looking for these deals, you must not just look at one deal. You must have at least 5 projects that you are doing your numbers on, you are running due diligence on, you are investigating. Must have at least 5 projects, because that puts you in a very strong position where you can't be muscled out or you can't be forced to pay more. You channel all your energy into one project, you are emotionally attached to it, and when it's time for them, you're thinking that, you know, that FOMO, which is called a fear of missing out, and you get into that FOMO mode, and you jump on a deal, and you'll end up paying more for the land. So be careful with that, and always have, it's called the next best alternative. So what is your next best alternative for if this deal doesn't come good? So every deal is just numbers. I don't know, for me it is. My business partners have a different view of it. For me, everything is just pure numbers. I don't know, I'm a little bit what is it called, a digitally inclined kind of person. So for me, it's all, there's no emotion whatsoever. Every project is a deal. Doesn't matter, we'll move on to the next project. How much does the other party need? This is what you need to figure out. How much is their need to actually be in the project? How can you strengthen your position? Can you offer an early settlement, or can you offer other options for this? So you got to constantly keep figuring out how can you strengthen your own position. How can you weaken the other party's position? So how do you do that? You highlight what you uncovered about the property. So everything that we were discussing in Power of Information, and trying to figure out if there are site issues, if there are issues with the history of the site or whatever they've done. You can weaken their position by highlighting everything that you uncovered that's a little bit negative for the property. Now, common problems are not going to be too effective here for you to use, because they are common. Everybody knows them, everybody expects them, and they won't cut it. But if the site's got a massive tree, which you may or may not be able to get rid of, and you don't know yet, because you got to get an arborist report, and it could be, for all you know, it could be at the end of its life, but maybe they don't know yet. So you got to use that tree to negotiate a better price, and use it to your advantage. Caveat emptor, which basically means buyer beware. If you think the other party is concealing information, which they don't conceal as such information, but they'll, I've seen that vendors are not forthcoming to tell you, and they'll just say, you do your own due diligence. So that's what that caveat emptor is all about. It's you got to do the due diligence and figure out. They will never tell you what's in the permit or if there's an issue with the site. They'll just say, as it is, this is what it is. You can start asking them questions like, what do you owe on your mortgage, or where are you planning to move? What other projects are you planning on purchasing? So especially when you are picking up a project with plans and permit, chances are you're picking up from another developer. And we've bought projects from other developers where they were either scared or their financial circumstances changed, and we've actually sold our projects to other developers as well. So you got to ask them if they are flogging off a site where which has plans and permit ready to go. You got to ask them, what other projects are you planning on purchasing if you get rid of this? Where are you buying? You ask them what city, because if they are lying, these things will start falling apart because they won't have an answer for it. So this is only to uncover if they are lying to you about something. If they lie about these basic things, they are likely also lying about other bigger things, and you got to watch their language. Has it got more I's in it or more V's in it? So you got to see. I had this guy who worked for the army, and he had a block of land that he wanted to develop and everything. And he came to us, yeah, I'm going to do a project with you guys, and can you show me the feasibility? And he wasted like almost 3 weeks of our time coming to our site, we finding out things about the site. And there was a time when we were not that strong. We are still trying to get strong. But there was a time when we were, like we could do a project with anybody as a JV, because somebody owned the land. So we're thinking we were gonna get into a JV, but this guy's just taking information off us. And that after the couple of meetings, I told my business partners that all I hear from this guy is I, and I. I kid you not, I will never be able to do a deal with him. And I told them after the second meeting. After that, we probably had maybe 6-7 more meetings, but we were never able to do any deal with him. He took all the information and then took off. And you will find that as soon as you know more than normal people that you hang out with, they will come to you to get more information. They'll take the information and then take off. And whether or not you're going to give them the information, it's up to you. Because initially, when I was starting out, I just wanted to talk to everybody about it because I just love talking about it. I even if I'm out and about somewhere and I'm walking past a block, I just can't stop myself from thinking what I can do with it. So, and both my business partners are the same. We go together in a car. Every time we're driving past something, all we are thinking is what can be done with this site. So remember, he who speaks next loses. So keep your mouth shut, keep silence. Less you talk, less information you give away. Shut up after making an offer. Let them get back to you. So if you made an offer, you make your offer and retrieve, and you don't talk about it. Don't chase them up. Let your offer expire. As we go down, I'm just going to start hurrying this up because there's a full section on offer. How to draft the offer and everything. So when you got that, when you do an offer, always put an expiry date on your offer, that this offer expires, and put a date on it. Whether it's 7 days, whether it's 10 days, doesn't matter. Whatever you think would be a good time for them to be able to get back to you, put an expiry date on your written offer, because that time will always press them to make a decision on the offer that you've given. Now, you've obviously gone through the hassle of figuring out what you can put on it, or what you can pay for it. So if you made an offer, this offer's got to be right, and you want to put some time breaks on it so that it puts pressure on them to make a decision. So or the other party will interpret your silence as anger or disappointment, and you will work to rectify the negative reaction. So the other party will get, so let your offer expire. Sorry, I missed this one. The other party will get uncomfortable with the silence and will break it themselves. So they will call you, or the other party will interpret your silence as anger or disappointment and will work to rectify the negative reaction. So they might either get ready or take action, or they might think that you are now upset. And the law number one, where most people think that they can't negotiate better, and that's what they'll think, and then they'll come back to rectify your negative reaction. So do not respond too quickly. Even when you are selling your units and you have received an offer from the agent. Agents are nasty. You want 700,000 for your units, they'll come to you with 670 or 680 and say, look, that's all there is on the market. So that is up to you to hold your ground, because all the agent wants is a quick sale, so that settles and he gets his commission and they're off. So you're the boss. You make sure that you don't let them do something like that. Do not respond too quickly, even if you received a counter offer. So if you make an offer and they come back with a counter, take your time, unless it's a hot market. Because when it's a hot market, everyone's got to be on their toes. Never negotiate with yourself. In other words, once you put out an offer or counter offer, don't provide any concessions to that offer until other party responds. I have a real life example for this that happened 2 days ago. The agent wanted me to, I'm going to sign a contract with 30 days due diligence, but he wanted to sneak in a clause in there that if we pull out during the due diligence, we'll have to pay $5,000 legal fees. And he tried to do that, and I said, sorry, mate, this is my offer. It stands the way it is. Take it or leave it. You release my $1,000 deposit, and you and vendor can, you know where to go. So, and he agreed. He took the clause out from the contract. leverage their ego. So you can compliment them, which must be genuine and reasonable. Don't compliment them on that they look handsome, for example, and you know that they look like a pig. So always give them a very genuine compliment, because otherwise people take it as an insult. So when you are looking to get a last concession, without giving up anything, let them talk longer. So all these things will happen especially when you want a concession. If they keep talking, they will give you that concession that you're looking for. So the power of circumstances is, again, what is motivating the vendor. So we're touching it again, and I'm going to just quickly breeze through this. Motivation, whether it's high or low, motivation to sell to you. This is more important, because the seller could be motivated to sell, but not necessarily to sell to you. So you need to uncover that motivation that they've got to sell to you. What other offers have they received? You got to figure that out. You got to uncover the motivation, and the way you do that is by asking these questions. If we can't or can come to an agreement for me to buy your house, what do you think? What do you think you'll do? So it's a little odd question, but it will uncover what their motivations are. If I were to offer you all cash and close as quickly as you'd like, what is the best price you could give me in return? So you only ask these questions when you are cashed up, and you know that I can offer the cash and get this side of the market. I want to offer you the things you likely most want: cash and quick settlement. What can you do in reciprocation? So you ask these questions straight away. Like, there's no hiding with this. So look, I'm giving you extra 100K, but I want 12 months settlement. Can you give me 12 months settlement? Or I'm giving you, and as long as my project works at paying him extra 100K, I've got no issues, so long as I'm making a good, healthy margin on my side. What does it look like for you? And how do you see working for you? These are two questions that will uncover a whole lot of information. Doesn't matter if you have cash or not. You are not offering anything. All you're doing is merely asking, what if you were to offer them quick settlement and cash, what can they do for you? So because you're saying what if, it's not really an offer. So figure out what's going on, whether it's a divorce, it's a deceased estate. I don't buy sites that are divorce cases, because we actually never have all the cash that we can settle on a site in a 30 days notice. So we have to build up everything for as far out as possible, to use as less of our own cash as possible. So usually with divorce cases, they're bitter, and by the time both husband and wife, they don't want to see each other, and so deceased estate, lack of knowledge. You've got to figure out what's going on with the buyer, and what's motivating the vendor to do it. So is there a foreclosure on him? He wants to retain a unit. Could be. What's his immediate need? Does he need cash, or does he need a holiday? Is he rushed or relaxed? What is the next best alternative for the vendor? The size of the mortgage or the debt on the property. Maybe you can pay out the debt plus give him like a 10-year cash flow kind of thing. So it just depends upon how you structure the deal. And we'll talk more about different ways you can structure a deal in the No Money Down deal section. So all these negotiation skills you'll need when you're doing your the creative strategies to be able to do projects, because you need to be really good at uncovering all this information so you can structure your offer the best way. So if the vendor could be relocating, they could be downsizing or upsizing. So those are the things that you need to know and understand. So purchaser, you got to find out cashed up. So if somebody comes to you as a purchaser, is experienced, knowledge, again, next best alternative. Other size, marginal return on equity or marginal development margin. So this is from your point of view, whether or not you are cashed up or you've got the knowledge, experience, and what is your next best alternative. Where else are you getting the best return on your equity? Where else are you making a good development margin, or are you going to make just a marginal development margin and it's not worth your trouble? So the party with the most leverage in a negotiation will generally be the one with the best alternatives should the negotiation fail. So that's why I said make sure that you're looking at 5 different projects at the same time, because if you got those 5 projects, you're not worried about losing that one, so you can walk away from it. And then that law number 1 would apply, because they will get scared and then they will come to party with you. So what is the alternative for the other party if an agreement is not reached? So find the next best alternative. Phone a friend. Well, it's not really phone a friend, but you can leverage off your partners. You can say things like, okay, great, but I'll have to discuss this with my business partners and get back to you. Or I'll run this by my wife, as she owns 50% of our business. I have to do my numbers again thoroughly, and then I can get back to you. I'll have to run this by my consultant and figure out whether or not it's possible. So yeah, and you can say, okay, they are good with this except for, like after you've gone back and discussed with your wife, your business partners, or done your numbers or whatever, you can come back and say, okay, they're good with this, but except for, and then you say what the concessions that you're looking for. You can bluff. You can bluff via your solicitor. Like you could say, reduce the price or I'm out. Even when you've got a contract that's in due diligence at the moment. You can make an offer and say, take it or leave it. You don't bluff on minor issues that won't give you significant gain should it work. The risk of throwing away a deal over a small gain is typically not worth it. So don't fight over $5,000. Unless you figure out that $5,000 was like a nibble. You know what I mean? So if it's a genuine expense, that's fine. But if you figure out that the other guy is trying to get that little piece from you extra, that's when you dig your heels. So provide a plausible explanation for why you can't budge off your current position. That's what I try and do all the time, where facts, figures, numbers, project doesn't work. And that's hence the reason I can't move. And if you tell them, every time you say something, you follow it with words, my offer to you would be, let's say XYZ, here's why. The more you say here's why, the more it comes out as genuine, and you are genuine, because you're telling them here's why I can't pay you that much, because I've done my numbers, I've seen what the issues with this site are, and that's why I've come to this decision. Offer a believable reason, data, or quantitative analysis. Additionally, when you when making a take it or leave it bluff, try to provide an additional concession along with your final offer. So if you say take it or leave it, you say, look, but I can do that, and if I do that, otherwise, take it or leave it. Always try and keep the door open, because if you shut the door on them, your deal's gone, and the time that you spend all that is gone on a perfectly good deal. But you should know when to walk away. Let the other party know that you are still very interested in working together, and should anything change on either side, you'll love to reestablish the discussion and continue working towards an agreement. So no love lost. And you should have a comeback. Provide a reasonable concession when you are making a comeback. So if you come back and say, look, or maybe you made a lowball offer and you got knocked back, instead of closing the door and saying, this has happened, come back to me and say, look, I did my numbers once again, and I'd forgotten to include X, Y, and Z, and this and that, or this new information came on my desk this morning, and I think I can make it, instead of 850, I could do 870 or something like that, or I could do a shorter settlement. Those things. So when you are bluffing and you get caught, and you want to make a comeback, you do that by making a small concession. Design an offer concession strategy. So make an offer and concession while asking for nothing in return. When you start off something, always make it's a concession strategy. But the first thing that you do is, if you are the first one who's given a first small concession, Even a small gift or gesture create a feeling of indebtedness. So what you're trying to do is get them to be indebted to you. So it sends a message that you are invested in their well-being and you're not looking to dominate. This is more important because some people, if they think that you're going to dominate, they're just gonna go in defense. Underlying human need to reciprocate. So if you've given them something, there's this underlying human need to reciprocate it. So repeat your concession. Make sure that they are aware of your concession you made. Make sure that the concession you made is not undervalued. So don't make a concession that means nothing. And always remember, if you come across somebody who themselves is a strong negotiator, they will start shooting down your concession as worthless. And that basically means that you haven't made any concessions. So if you are the receiver of the concession, send the message that you appreciate the concession, but then you shoot it down. It's not worth as much as you'd like it to be. So structure your offer so there is room for you to give away a small win to the other party. Again, better price versus early settlement, flexible terms. Is the vendor happy to come on board for the development? This will open a new can of worms, and then we can have further negotiations, vendor finance, all of that. We'll get into that when we are doing the JV with landowners and all of that. If vendor will not negotiate on price, negotiate on your own terms and vice versa. Highlight all the flaws. Make sure your offer, make sure your price, doing all of the above. So control and steer negotiations. You may decide to present point A before you present point B. Highlight flaws. That'll give you stronger. That'll make you stronger. And back what you're saying by research and numbers. Again, just don't just say that, that's what it's going to cost me because it's got a tree. But find out what it's going to cost you, and then present it to them. Present your offer with your best conditions. You can revise your offer. Could be revising your price. Could mean revising your terms and condition. Never appear to be desperate. And this is very hard, especially when we are starting out. So I don't think we'll have time to cover this because this is a big section. Actually, we might be able to cover the offer. So your offer needs to have 7 things. Number 1, it needs to be in writing. I'll zoom in a little bit more. It needs to be in writing. There's got to be a date, and you can't start with a fixed price in mind. And it always must come via a authority, unless you haven't got one. So we don't send all our offers via the lawyer, but when I'm negotiating a price and when I want them to put the price down, I will send that via the lawyer. So that's what an offer looks like, and I'll give you the template. You can copy it. Just don't use our logo and that I'm sure you won't. It just talks about there's a letter of offer, date, who you're gonna give it to, subject, purchase entity, Maven Developments, and/or nominee. This is a clause that you can copy and put in there. Substitute buyer, so which basically says if you sign a contract with and/or nominee, it basically means that I could nominate some other entity to settle on the block later on. Offer price 1.2, deposit. Now we've got all the subject to, terms and conditions, settlements, and so on. So avoid round numbers. I mean this one was a round number, but I've made offers at 1.281 and then signed a contract on 1.281. So if you don't have a round number like 1.2 million or 1.5 million, it's like you've got to if you got, let's say, compare 1.2 million with let's say 1.257 or something like that, and that way it tells them that some consideration has gone into coming up with the price. Show that you have a rationale behind your offer price. and it helps beat the competition as well. Offer low but not too low. It should have plenty of room for you to come up. The optimum initial price is one that vendor is willing to counter, but had it been even $1 lower, the vendor would have told you to take a hike. So determine the optimal offer, and vendor source of motivation, level of motivation we've already discussed. The stronger the vendor's motivation, the less likely you are to insult them with a low offer. The more motivated they are, the lower your initial offer should be. So the more they want to sell their block and get rid of it and go to Bahamas, the lower your offer needs to be. So if they are desperate, that means they are a motivated buyer, motivated seller, then your offer needs to be low. So this is negotiation. So how are you going to give them the deposit? Is it going to be upfront? Is it going to be staged? Or is it a portion of it could be released to the vendor? So these are all the things that you can tweak and structure based on what you want and how you're going to arrive at a date. So you must have a settlement date. It must have a subject to clause. It could be subject to obtaining permit, 30 days due diligence, finance. I've seen that a lot of subject to finance clauses are mostly in off-the-plan sales and brand new. When someone is buying a retail product, so someone's buying a townhouse, someone's buying a unit, that's when subject to finance kicks in. But in development, you better have the finance portion sorted before you make an offer, because subject to finance usually doesn't work in development that much, because somebody else would come in and take the site. Other terms, access to site, you want to start marketing before you, even before the permit comes in, or you want to, before the settlement. We negotiated a deal once where we didn't even settle on it, and we had actually put that contract, like the Section 32 was a big fat Section 32, because it had a Section 32 for the settlement of the land, and then it had a Section 32 for the unit that we had developed, and we had sold it even before settling on the land, and you were allowed to do that. But your solicitor needs to know how they're going to put the contract together. It's a little bit cumbersome, and it can put off a lot of people, a lot of buyers actually, because then they see a big fat disclosure statement or Section 32, and then they get worried, what else is in it, who's going to read all of that. So but all there is saying that there's a settlement that needs to go through the land first, and then these units can be sold, then these units can be settled. So always consider the likely competition you'll have when making your offers, and adjust your offers accordingly based on your desire to get the deal and the likelihood of the vendor receiving other simultaneous offer. So you got to make an offer closer to the vendor's minimum acceptable offer. So, and this is one of the other things in your offer: always have an expiry time. You'll have a longer and shorter settlement things in there, but when you're making an offer, as I mentioned earlier, if you put an expiry date on your offer, it will force them to make a decision quick. Okay, so it's 9 o'clock today, and we are at, how much is that? It's not that much. We can actually cover this on a Thursday. Okay, this is a comeback. Okay, now this is a massive section. Captain America. This is all defense tactics. So this is when you're trying to sell your units, and other people will do what I've been telling you to do to vendors. So don't think that other people won't try these things on you. So this is all about comebacks, where if they try and do these things to you, how do you react and how do you handle that? So we can discuss that next Thursday. So we are at levers, and actually this is a massive section too. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, I knew Will was going to ask something. Yes, Will. Hello?
Hello, Amba. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Amba, let me just try. Yes, I can. Let me just try with the audio from my computer because I think these headphones are actually not a good. Give me a sec.
That's all right. Will, I'm going to mute you and go to John, and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, John, you're on mic.
How are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Just while I can, before we close tonight, I just want to remind everybody who is interested in the JV about the meeting in St Kilda at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon.
Fantastic. I like this momentum, John.
We're meeting at Pontoon, which is on the Esplanade in St Kilda.
Yeah, post that in that Facebook group as well. If you post it there, then people would get that message, and you guys now have each other's email addresses and everything as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So have SMS'd everybody who has shown an interest who's local, and obviously anyone else interested is welcome. Please, guys, let's keep it going as Amber spoke about earlier, and let's get this done.
Yep. You guys should. Any other question, John?
No, that's good. Thanks, Amber.
All right. Thanks, John. Thank you very much. Ashley, you're on mic.
Hi, Amber. Thank you. Very interesting session. I just want to look again at that letter of offer which you flashed.
I'm gonna.
We'll just talk about that in general.
Yeah, I'm going to the letter of offer template and the Excel template. You guys, I'll put that under the video.
Okay. But more generally, so when you're making an offer on a place, you submit a deposit. If they accept the offer, you put like an initial small deposit, right, which goes together with your due diligence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then if the due diligence fails, you get that deposit back.
Yep.
Is that correct?
It could be $1,000. It could be $60,000. It could be 5%, whatever. But usually, what we try and negotiate is, I'll give you $1,000 or $5,000, and we go through the due diligence. At the end of due diligence, if I want to go ahead, that's when I'll give you the 5% deposit.
Okay, so the initial one's just $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then determination that due diligence has failed. That's just purely up to you. You've done your numbers, and you don't need a reason other than sorry, the numbers didn't crunch together. Can I have my $1,000 back? Is that correct?
Yes, it's purely up to you. But get the lawyer to draft something like that. So I may have some clauses somewhere.
Because your letter here doesn't say anything like that in the offer. I'm just looking through it.
No, it says here. Contract entered and subjected to successfully completing a due diligence period of 21 days.
But the $1,000 which you handed over as an initial deposit is not mentioned on this letter of offer, for example.
In this scenario, I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, and that 60,000 as well that we've got. It was the purchaser. The purchaser is to agree that the 60,000 deposit will be released to Miss. I just changed the names. Liz Hurley upon contract going unconditional. That means it goes unconditional at the end of due diligence. So
then you give that 60K deposit. Yeah.
That's when we need to give them the 60K deposit.
Okay. And what's to stop? Like, let's say you give an offer for 1.2 million. They accept the offer. You go on into due diligence period. What is to stop the vendor selling that land to someone else during that due diligence period?
They can't. They signed a contract. They'll go to jail if they do that. Well, not jail, but there are massive penalties. If they've signed the contract with you, there's no way they can actually double cross somebody. Like, you can't sell the same property to two people at the same time.
Okay, so it's not a case of them just giving you $1,000 back and saying sorry, even though you spent money on your consultants and whatever, right?
Yeah, but let's say you've gone past your due diligence, but your settlement doesn't happen for another 6 months. Right, I would file a caveat on. I would file a caveat on the property, and your lawyer would advise you to do that as well. Because
so when I'm doing my first negotiation on a property, should I have a chat with my lawyer first, and then talk to them about my strategy in doing this, or do I just follow your sort of template, or what do you think?
No, for sure. Just ask your lawyer that, look, can you give me a template? He'll charge you once. Get a template of him
Yeah.
that says, put a clause on it that subject to due diligence, and you put in the number of days anytime you want to use it. So it could be 20 days, could be 14 days, could be 30 days. And get that due diligence subject to due diligence clause, and they might decide to add a couple of other clauses in it because you're from Brisbane.
Okay, sounds
and,
good.
and Queensland could be different.
Yeah.
So
All right, thanks, Amber.
no problem at all. Anybody else would like to ask a question? Thanks very much, Ashley. Okay, we're going back to Will again. Yes, Will. Will, you're on mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. But just quickly, couple of questions, Amba. Is there any dynamics that you follow when doing a deal with investors?
Is there
any strategy?
There's no strategy that's straightforward or a cookie cutter strategy that I use. What you got to figure out is that what are your terms? How long will you have to carry the project before the construction starts? How much money do you need up until that point when construction starts? And how are you going to structure it? So if people are coming in with their money, what kind of return are they going to get? So these are questions that you got to answer. I would first master due diligence and financial feasibility, and if you nail them really well and you know your numbers and you understand how everything is going, it just gets easier and easier to attract more people, because most people can't do feasibilities right, something or the other. And most of the time, initially when I was doing a project, I just couldn't stack any project. Almost a year was going to go by and I couldn't stack any project because either I was allowing the sales that were too low, or I was allowing for more costs in construction, something or the other. I just couldn't get it. And now I can make most projects work because you've got a better idea of your market, you've got a better idea of your construction costs, and it works.
Mm-hmm. Now, thanks for that, Amba. That's covered. In terms of presenting your feasibility to an investor,
yeah.
I guess you don't want to show them exactly how much you're making. That'll be silly.
No, you show them everything.
I guess the high.
You show them everything. Investors are people who are putting money. Investors are not your agents. You don't show your feasibility to an agent who you are buying the land of. But investors they are making it possible for you. So you've got to show them and not be sorry about making money. Because you've got to show them that they can't. Okay. They can't. Maybe they can't do it because you bring in the knowledge and you're going to do all the work. All they have to do is supply the money. But you got to show them. You got to show them how safe their money is going to be and how is it going to be protected. Unless they are satisfied with that portion, they will not move forward. And the second thing is that the deal's got to have money for them to be able to make some money. So if you take care of two things for them, one, you show them it's got money, and second, you make them secure. So their money's got to be secure. But also remember that if they borrow you money, or they say, look, I'll take first mortgage on the side and I'll settle on it and all of that, that's fine. But let them know that when construction kicks in, because we haven't done the development finance module, have we? Because when the actual we have done the finance module. So when the construction kicks in, the whole loan will be repackaged into a commercial loan, and the bank's going to have the first mortgage, and bank will not let the investors have a mortgage on it. So at that time during the construction, they will have to take their first mortgage off. And you explain them when money comes in, the first one is bank, second one is ATO, and the third one is you, and I'm the last one.
Okay. So you basically, I will show the investors my exactly, let's say I'm making a 75, let's say I'm making a 50% ROI, return on investment,
Yeah.
on the capital that I invested in the project.
Yeah.
What I was thinking, this is not for now. This will probably be for my second, third project, or sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but my brother-in-law, who is married to my sister, and we are all very close.
Yeah.
He's in real estate in South America, in Argentina.
Yeah.
And he develops as well. He's got a real estate agency. Now, what happens with Argentina and with some of the countries of South America, but especially in this case Argentina, is that Argentina had not long ago a banking crisis. So there is a lot of wealthy people that have big money, but they don't trust the banks. So they will never put the money in the banks. They actually have the money in cash. So I was speaking with Leandro, and I asked him, he's my brother-in-law, and I asked him, what return on investment do you give to your investors? Now, Leandro is a people's person. He has he's got a group of investors, and he does projects, and he's very, very, very keen to come here to Australia and start doing projects with me in the near future. But he gives them a 12 to 15% return on their investment. All right. And I guess if you go to the shares, let's say if you wanted to do shares and you want to get a good return on your investment, 10% will be fine. But Leandro is giving them 12 to 15%. Now, when doing my feasibilities, I know I can easily get a 50% return on my investment.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, what if I offer those investors in the near future, once I know a bit more of this, a 20% return on the investment, and then I give 5% to Leandro per each one of the investors that he gets. So the total return on investment for Leandro and his investors will be 25%, 5% for Leandro, and 20% per each one of the investors. And I still make 25% on them because my return on investment is actually 50%.
Okay.
So
there are a few issues with
what
that.
do you think about it?
If their money comes here and they don't care how the money, whether or not they've got security on the block, in the sense that will they themselves be a shareholder here, or they just give the money to your brother-in-law and your brother-in-law wires the money to you and then you go and do whatever you want?
I think it will be something more like that. It will be just cash being transferred, and this it's just by not by word of mouth, but I'm telling you, Leandro, my brother-in-law has a long-term relationships with these investors, and he really, really takes care of them. The investors invest not one time, but 3, 4, and 5 times. So I believe that the money will be transferred. I could probably claim that the money was given to me as a gift, so I don't pay tax.
You can always show that it came to you as a loan, because the money has to be returned. So you don't have to say gift or whatever. Just say it came in as a loan, and you should account for it. What percentage did you say that it will come to you? At what interest rate?
I've been doing my feasibilities, and I can easily, I'm sure, look, a 10% development margin or a 12% development margin gives me roughly 50 to 65, I think, 50 to 60 return on my investment. At 15% development margin gives me a 75 ROI. Now, this is in residential lending. I'm talking about a smaller project, so you don't have to outlay that much capital. But what I was thinking of doing basically is, all right, let's say I get 50% return on investment. Why don't I give 25% to them? And Leandro, my brother-in-law, gets 5% per each one of the investors. That way he's got an incentive to bring them here. And he can also put in his own money. And then he will be making 25% on his own money and then 5% per each one of the investors that he comes. Now this, of course, I wouldn't want to fund the whole project with investors, because I can use the money of the bank, and the interest on the money of the bank is cheaper than 20%. But this will only be used as the capital, let's say my 35% or my 20% that I need to get the development finance. So this is just ideas, and I just wanted to get some feedbacks. And
you should do
in this case, for example,
you should do some numbers and keep into account the exchange rate and see what ends up after the exchange rate back to them. If the money comes from a bank into a bank, is not an issue, and you can show them as a loan, or you take it in your company as a loan, because the money has to go back, so that's no issue. You should go and see an accountant again, because I'm not allowed to give you all this advice, but
That's okay.
and I'm not giving you any advice either. I would go and see an accountant.
Nice.
You can move the money, but keep into account the foreign exchange rate, because sometimes I've seen that even if the money came from overseas, by the time it was done and it went back in that fees and everything, that return dropped. So
Yeah.
do your
I should
math,
take-
figure out how
yeah.
it's going to come in, the cost of look, the bank transaction fees aren't that much, on the transfer and everything. So if it does come in, it has to go back after a certain period of time, and it'll be exchanged back into that. So if you're going to do this on a regular basis, you could hedge it, like you could take a forward rate or something, just to make sure that when you're returning it back, comes at the same. But this is another thing that you got to look at. But if you have access to that kind of money, do that. So long as they don't buy in a project directly, you're fine, because if they do, then it has to come via FIRB, which is the Foreign Investment Review Board. And in Victoria,
Yeah, I don't want that. Yeah, I don't want that tax. I know that.
it's 12.5% stamp duty the moment you are FIRB, and it costs for a small 8 townhouse development, the FIRB fee alone is about 12.5 grand. So yeah, but
exactly. That's why I think it will need to be sent to me directly, or to my sister. But yeah, look, I think that they will be more than happy if they're actually getting right now 12% return on the investment annually. I think they will be more than happy with 20%. But look, this is something that I'll just suss out later on. Can I ask you another question while we're on this topic? If I'm getting investors and they are asking for, let's say, 20% return on their return on the money per annum,
yeah,
how do I take? Because what I'm thinking is, I might get this project, but this project is not going to be finished in maybe 22 months, 24 months.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take their money right now. And so I think the best way will be taking their money in the best moment. So when I want to apply for development finance, I guess for that to be approved, I need to show some amount of money in my bank account.
Yep.
Will I be able to show some of, let's say, my cash, and what comes from the investors? Could I bring that as a BG, as a bank guarantee, so I don't have to take the money away from them and start paying interest? I don't know. Is that something
you'll have to check.
Thought about, or
see, the bank that's going to fund you is the bank that you'll have to see whether or not they've got collaboration with the bank from Argentina, where they could take a bank guarantee from Argentina. I'm pretty sure it happens, because when we export that, it's called letter of credit, that when you export stuff, the letter of credit is actually, it's called LC, and it is the bank from the other country guaranteeing the other bank, like, this guy's got funds, so ship your stuff, and then once the stuff is here, we'll give you the money. So I'm pretty sure it happens, and in today's day and age, it definitely will, is possible.
Yeah.
But I would be very
just,
careful,
yeah.
so that you figure out the money that you need to go from point A to DA, or to the permit, and you're not dependent on them, because it can't be midway, because from after the DA, the project is it changes again. So if you wanted to pull the pin after the DA, you can actually sell the site, and if for whatever reason the money doesn't get here, you can sell the site and get out of the project. So you don't want to be in a situation where you are committed in the project, waiting for them to send the money, and then the money doesn't come in, and then you're struggling to keep your head above the water. So just be very careful with this, because you have to be double, triple sure, because they are away. They don't know who you are, but obviously they know your brother-in-law and everything, and I'm sure you know your brother-in-law better than anybody. So just be careful of this and mindful of this, that you should have enough funds to get to stage 1. Stage 1 is from start till permit, because at that time, if you don't want to go further, there is an out.
Yeah, no, think that should be all right with the capital that I will bring in. But yeah, I guess we'll be interested exploring this in the near future. I'm actually catching up with my brother-in-law in November and probably meeting there some people. And I've been chatting with him, and I'm bringing a whole lot of information and data to show him, and he's coming here to Australia next year. But yeah, that'll be something in the near future.
Remember, confidence and thoroughness for him to trust you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I'm sure that I can give them 20% if my feasibilities are correct, and I'm making a 12% development margin. That means that I can give them a 20% return on the investment. So this is very interesting. I think there is an opportunity right there, and will be very good to explore it. On another note, do you know what's the fine line between residential lending and domestic lending? What I've heard is that when you're going to do a duplex, you actually can
it's a retail loan
with residential lending.
Yeah, it's a retail loan. Yeah. Up until 3 units.
It's a retail loan.
Up until 3 units, it's a retail loan. For 3 units, there will be no QS involved.
In a retail loan, Amber,
I've lost your voice.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I actually think that my audio doesn't get to you on the actual time that I'm speaking, but that's okay. I think
no. I can hear you now, but every now and then in the middle I lose you. But no, I can hear you now.
Okay, just when you go with retail lending, with residential lending, let's say that you're doing a small development.
Yeah.
Do you need 35% upfront, or can you get away with 20% upfront?
No. 35% upfront is actually at the construction stage. You can figure out that you can get to the town planning stage with $40,000, and that's it. But if you want to go through the construction cycle or anything, they will want pre-sale, and they would want you to put 35% or 30% of TDC in the project. So even if let's say you've got 4 units and you've sold all 4 of them off the plan, most banks will still not fund it, the top 4 banks, because their policy is, where is the developer's money in it? So you'll have to put in a minimum of 30% or whatever their minimum is, depending on the bank you are, in the project. And they might reduce it. They might say, look, you've got 4 pre-sales, so we are fine with you putting in 20%. But they will force you to put that 20% in. Now, that's a different story. If you've got 4 pre-sales and you go to a second tier or a third tier lender, and they might fund the whole thing for you. You know? But their interest rate would be very high.
Okay, so the banks always want you to use your money first then. So let's say I'm doing a project, let's say I've got 30%. They will always want me to use my 30% first to get everything together. And then once I run out of money, will they then get in and fund the rest of the project? Is that how it works?
Yeah, usually your money would go into the purchase of the land, because that's the first thing that's going to be settled. So again, when the land is purchased, they look at it, okay, you know, it's 80-20, you haven't got a DA, you haven't done anything, so it stays a retail loan. But if it's a duplex, it can be just one loan. Like duplexes and 3 townhouses are very easy. In fact, there's no QS involved. I was talking to my banker because we're doing, we had this project where we've got 3 4-bedders, 4-bedroom unit, and my banker said, you don't need a QS. I'll come in every month, have a look at it, and it's all good. So
okay,
yeah.
But last question. When we are talking about a contract of sale and signing the contract of sale, let's say I put 5% deposit. I got to negotiate 12-month settlement, and then can I actually pull out of a contract of sale? What are the penalties if I do want to pull out?
Hang on.
I just want to see my risk here.
Have you gone unconditional? Are you?
No, I haven't done anything. But I just want to know though.
No. But at what stage you planning to pull out? In your due diligence or after you've gone unconditional? Hello, Will.
So let's say I've got a project.
Yeah.
Let's say I've got a fee.
Yeah.
Okay. I've done my due diligence. All right. I know I can put there 3 townhouses. I know my development margin is 15%. Everything is right. So then I go to the agent and I say, all right, here is 5%. We want 12-month settlement. This is what's happening. They say, all right, yes, sign the contract. And they make me sign that unconditional.
Okay.
Can I pull out during 12 months?
You lose your deposit. It just depends upon the vendor, how nasty he or she would want to be. Because if they want to be really nasty, and a lot of time's gone by. So let's say it was a 12-month settlement and you went unconditional on the first month, and then 6-7 months have gone by, and then you say, look, I'm going to get out of the thing now. You know, they would kill you. Like, not kill you, but I know somebody who did that, and they bankrupted him. They went after him, and he had to declare himself bankrupt because you got to pay for the entire advertising for them. If it happens within, let's say, 2 weeks or so, and you say, look, I can't do this, I can't settle, whatever, and you might be able to negotiate something because the vendor didn't lose a lot of time. They lost maybe 2 weeks. They'll, hit you on your wrist and say, look, don't do that again, but you got to pay for my all legal costs. You got to pay my entire advertising, and you got to pay me X amount of interest or whatever until the property is sold. And you might get off with that. But you make the vendor wait for 7 months, right? And then say, I'm not going to settle on it. Mate, you're going to court.
Okay. Now that shouldn't be happening, of course.
But,
I just wanted to know what are
but
the
let's say you there's a 12-month settlement, and for whatever reason you were not able to find the money, but you are still looking for money, right? The vendor can give you that extension. Like, they won't, they don't send you to jail on that day when your settlement is due and you weren't able to come up with the money. You can negotiate a monthly interest or something with the vendor up until, like another 30 days or another 60 days or something. And most vendors will do that. But if the vendor already has another commitment that they need to come up with the money and everything, they might get very nasty. So, but why do that?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
It's not the route that I would recommend anybody to go down. It's not good. It's not good practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. I just wanted to see how the situation plays and what are the implications, because I just didn't know how it goes. But no, it's good to know. It's good to know. And I guess I don't think anybody should have a reason to do that, because you can always you've done all your feasibility, you've done all your research. You actually have the project together, so you can always just flick it and sell it to another developer.
See,
so I don't think anybody should do that.
Yeah, just make sure that you've calculated your costs and everything, and from point A to point B, you got all the money to get to point B. And at point B, if you want to pull the pin, you have an out. But from point B to point C, that's another round of money that you would need to come up with, or because all the building permit and the working drawings, they cost a lot more than town planning drawings. And there are a lot more consultants involved at that stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, perfect. No, Amba, that's all for me. Thanks for taking the time to answer my questions.
No worries at all, mate. No worries at all. Anybody else would like to ask a question? It's 9:30 today. Otherwise, I'll go to sleep. Okay, Shane, give me 1 second. Yes, Shane.
Yeah, hi Amber. Just something brief. Just back to the negotiation stage there in that letter of offer.
Yep. Okay.
You would have been speaking to the agents, trying to find out some information prior to that point. When you draft or put something together like that letter of offer, would you submit that once you've agreed verbally to the offer price, the deposit amount, the settlement time, or would that be something you would use perhaps as you're getting towards the end of a negotiation, haven't been able to work something out, and that becomes your your final position? How would you use that in the process?
No, I'll only put that in when I verbally agreed with the agent that, you know, this is what I'm going to put my offer in at. Yeah. So if the agent says, you know, I can't accept 1.2 million, there's no point in me sending him a written offer at 1.2 million. You know what I mean? Then it's me trying to show him that, you know, by law he's got to take it to the vendor, and then you're making an enemy straight off the bat. So you want the agent on your side, and you'll find that as you move forward, you won't have the time to do all of these things. So the agent can go and knock and find you sites and all of that. So don't burn bridges with the agent. Get him in confidence. If he says, you know, this is the offer, or he'll say, look, put in your offers, we'll see how it goes.